our webinar, we have our first speaker, Dr. Pavan Kumar, who's a medical consultant, glaucoma services, Arvind Eye Care Systems, Pondicherry, to talk on the very quintessential topic, the theory behind visual field testing and making sense of commonly used terms. On to you, Dr. Pavan.
Thank you, Madam. First of all, I would like to thank the AOS ARC committee and our beloved chairman for giving me this wonderful opportunity to talk in front of this eminent panelist. And I would like to share my screen. And I hope my screen is visible now.
Yes.
Yes, madam. So my topic for today is to discuss the theory behind visual field testing and making sense of commonly used terms. So we all know the standard automated perimetry has become the gold standard and is an essential part of glaucoma diagnosis and treatment. But how far it is easier for anybody, it may be the patient or it may be the doctor, to understand this visual field testing and for the patient to perform this test. And this is the most common scene what we see in our tertiary center. So basically, what is perimetry? Perimetry is a standard method to assess a person's visual field, and perimetry provides a measure of a person's visual function throughout the visual field, and the devices used to perform these evaluations are called perimeters. So why to perform perimetry? Because we need to detect certain pathologies, evaluate the disease status at the time of diagnosis and at the time of follow-up. What is the efficacy of our treatment, whether there is any stability is there or there is any worsening. And it is also an important visual ability testing. So in what pathologies we normally do perimetry? The most commonly used pathology is the glaucoma, and starting from the optic nerve to the occipital lobe, which may be due to trauma, stroke, or tumors, and in certain retinal diseases. What is a normal visual field? When a person fixates a particular point as a fixation point, and then the amount of field which is seen without moving the eye or head at a single point of time is the normal visual field. And this is defined as the hill of vision in the sea of blindness. So for each eye, there is a monocular field which extends about 60 degree superiorly, 50 degree superiorly and nasally, 60 degree inferiorly, and 90 degree temporally. And when both eyes are open and seeing together, the amount of field which overlaps between the two eyes is called as binocular visual field, and the physiological blind spot which occurs due to the presence of optic nerve head falls within this binocular visual field, and hence normally we don't appreciate the physiological blind spot. Central field. Central field includes an area from fixation point to a circle 30 degrees away, in which fovea occupies the central 3 degrees and the macula occupies the central 10 degrees. Our most commonly done activities such as reading, driving, recognizing color and shapes, and focus-based detail-oriented tasks are performed with the help of central field. And this is a central field which is actively used. The peripheral field comprises the rest of the area behind this 30 degrees to the outer extent of the field of vision. This is not actively used, but it is as essential as a central field. It is essential for processing the spatial information received through the eyes. And in case of low light, we see better with the peripheral fields compared to the central vision because of more number of rods in the periphery compared to of a retinal point to appreciate a light stimulus. If a particular retinal point is able to appreciate even a dim light, then that particular retinal point can be labeled as highly sensitive. If it can appreciate the brightest light only, then we call it as low sensitive. And in perimetry, especially the automated perimetry, uses a varying intensity of light stimulus to measure the sensitivity of various retinal points. As all know, the fovea has got a maximum light sensitivity, and as we move towards the periphery, the sensitivity of the retinal point keeps on decreases. When we obtain the data from all the retinal points through the perimeter and put it on a map, we get a 3D map that is called as hill of vision, where the fovea occupies the peak, and rest of the retinal points falls on the slope of this hill. Decibel scale used in perimeter. Light can be measured using various units. Luminance is defined as the intensity of the light that is reflected on the perimetric surface, and this can be measured using light meter. This luminance is expressed as candelas per meter square, or in older unit, that is apostolic. 1 candela per meter square is equal to 3.14 apostolic. Since there are so many terms, so many definitions has been involved in defining the light units, we commonly use decibel unit to easily understand and interpret visual field test results. The decibel scale is used in perimeter varies from 0 decibel, that is the brightest stimulus, to 40 decibel, that is the dimmest stimulus. Normally, the fovea can appreciate somewhere around 30 decibel, and in case of absolute scotoma, that retinal point will not respond even to the brightest stimulus, that is a 0 decibel. Perimetry allows the detection of abnormal sensitivity to light. This deviation from the normal hill of vision can be easily assessed using perimeter. The pattern and shape of vision loss can be made out. The deviations can be in the form of constriction of the field, or it can be localized depressions. What are the types of perimetry? Kinetic perimetry and static perimetry. The most commonly used kinetic perimeters are Goldman perimeter, tangent screen, and confrontation test. For static perimetry, we have Humphreys and Octopus.
Interpret the visual fields.
In kinetic perimetry, the stimulus is moved from non-seeing area to the seeing area, and the point at which the stimulus is appreciated is mapped, and we get an isopter for this. By using various stimulus, we can mark different isopters depending on the stimulus size. It gives only a 2D measurement of field of vision, and it is easy to outline the border of the defects. Whereas in case of static perimetry, here the stimulus is stationary. It is of fixed size, only the intensity varies. Static perimetry measures sensitivity at each retinal point, and it gives a 3D assessment of height of predetermined areas of field of vision. The most commonly used are HFA perimeter and Octopus. HFA is manufactured by Zeiss and Octopus is manufactured by Hackstreet. The principles of visual field testing. Normal human visual system has got a poor ability to estimate absolute magnitudes of light, but it has got a very good ability to perceive contrast, that is a relative magnitudes of light. Static perimetry measures this differential light sensitivity of stimulus against a constant illuminated background. There will be a constant illuminated background against which a varying intensity of light stimulus is projected, and the stimulus for which the patient response is recorded. The machine will start projecting from the first point and ask the patient whether he is able to see it or not. And then it further progresses to measure the sensitivity points in all the retinal points. And finally, it provides a data of 3D hill of vision. Various types of testing which is done in static perimetry are supra-threshold testing and threshold testing. Threshold testing is a threshold at a given location is the brightness of a stimulus at which it can be identified by the patient. For example, if we say that this is the threshold point below which the patient will not be able to appreciate the light stimulus, and above which all the light stimulus should be appreciated by the patient, and that is called supra-threshold. The luminance of a given fixed location stimulus at which it is seen on 50% of the occasions it is presented. And this gives a very precision testing of the visual field. Whereas a supra-threshold testing includes a bright stimulus with an intensity above the anticipated threshold for the retinal location. And supra-threshold stimulus is expected to be seen in all parts of the normal visual field. Hence, it gives a very rapid testing. It is not highly quantitative and is reserved only for screening. It can detect only gross defects. For HFA, there are various visual.
1 minute remaining.
Yeah. In HFA testing, we have got various threshold testing like Center 30-2, 24-2, and etc. And for screening also, there are various visual field testing programs. So with this, I would like to end, and the rest of the speakers will continue the interpretation of visual field testing. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Dr. Pavan, for doing great justice of those 10 minutes.
Thank you.
I want to ask a basic question to Dr. Krishna Das. Do we always keep the foveal threshold off on all field measurement testings, or would you keep it off only in some instant? Dr. Krishna Das? Okay. Dr. George? Dr. Pavan, maybe you could answer that.
Yes, madam. So normally it is ideal to keep the foveal threshold on, madam, so that we get an idea of the sensitivity. It depends on the testing pattern. Sometimes we keep it as fovea off also, but the most common thing what we advise is to keep it foveal threshold testing on, madam. It takes just few seconds.
I suppose for a macular pathology is there in the eye, then it makes sense to keep the foveal threshold off. Yes.
Yes, madam.
Yeah. Gauri, could you take a question?
Yeah. I don't know whether it is for a future speaker to take, or Dr. Muralidhar or someone on the panel can answer. There are various thresholding strategies that many of these perimeters use. And now there are a lot of recent strategies like CETA-FAST and FASTER, which are being incorporated. So Dr. Muralidhar, do you want to throw some more light on that? The thresholding strategies in the Humphrey and the Octopus perimeters? What strategy do we choose when we choose a perimetry program? How would you guide a practitioner to choose which strategy to use? I think Dr. Ronnie can take that if someone, Dr. Ronnie? Yeah.
Yeah. So in general, you should go with a full threshold strategy, or that is a strategy that looks at basically, if you have access to it, the CETA standard is probably the standard thing that you would look to do for every visual field, at least at the first time, because you need to get a good idea of what the thresholds are like. And contrary to, popular thought that the CETA-FAST and the FASTER programs are easier to do, actually for a perimetrically untrained person, the CETA standard is easier to do than the FAST or the FASTER programs.
Okay.
So it makes sense to first do the CETA standard, and for follow-up of a patient who's experienced perimeters, you can use the other two.
And continuing that question further, which program would you use? Is it the 24-degree program or the 30-degree program or the newly launched 24C program, which is there, and the analogous ones in the Humphrey?
Well, the 30-2 does give you a little additional information as compared to the 24-2. But if you remember Anderson and Patila's criteria, we do exclude the edge points. So if you have a very busy practice, there is no, and you're looking at a glaucomatous visual field, there is not a big loss in doing a 24-2 program. It also makes sense to do the 24-2C because you do get central points. But keep in mind that it is not a standard thresholding program as of now. But yeah, if you have a glaucoma suspect, it's not a bad idea to do the 24-2C because you'll pick up central defects.
Okay. And for a very early glaucoma, it still stands to advantage to do a 30-2 too, because there are more points being tested here compared to the 24-2. Would that play some advantage to have those extra points?
See, I mean, if you look at, there is not much advantage in doing a 30-2 when you're not over a 24-2. Agree that you get more points. But if you look at Anderson's criteria, you actually exclude the peripheral points when you're considering whether there's a significant defect.
Yeah.
And also, I think the 10-2 is of value even in early glaucomas. Dr. Chandrima, do you want to throw more light on that? The use of 10-2, which people think is restricted to advanced glaucomas. Can you tell us how you would use it in an early glaucoma?
Yeah, so we used to use the 10-2 earlier on to see early glaucomas where, 24-2 or a 30-2 is out of the question. But recently I've started using the CETA-FASTER or the 24-2C which I find is of more benefit to the patient than the 10-2. Because when you have a early glaucoma where, a patient is a suspect with high IOPs and maybe very, very subtle disc changes, that's when a 24-2C actually comes in, because it gives you the extra 12 points at the center. And, I see it more and more in my day-to-day practice that fields which were normal for a 24-2 CETA standard, if you repeat it and do a 24-2C, the central area is blown up actually. So you actually can see a paracentral defect maybe in that strategy, which you actually would have missed in the 24-2 CETA standard. Yeah.
True. Dr. Murali, I wanted to ask you a question. How do we obtain baseline fields, and can you change this baseline field? Like supposing a patient has had a trabeculectomy surgery done, can you change it? Dr. Murali, are you connected? I think he's not connected. Dr. Ronnie, could you throw light on that?
Yeah, so again, a baseline basically means two repeatable, reliable visual fields, and they should ideally be done fairly close to each other. So if you have somebody with let's say, an ocular hypertensive who basically has a normal field, you can even leave a 3 to 4 month gap between them. But anybody with established disease, it's better to get the two baselines fairly close together. And the two baselines should be after the learning curve is over. So the field should be repeatable, they should be reliable, and they should have similar defects.
I think the machine also picks it up by default note to set the baseline field. Of course, we also can change it, especially after a trabeculectomy surgery. You want to set a new baseline, then you could do it too, I guess.
When there is any major change, trabeculectomy or a cataract surgery or a PCO YAG, you should change the baseline.
Yes. Dr. Gauri, anything to ask before we go on to our next speaker?
I was wondering if someone can throw light on the octopus perimeter, because that is another perimeter which
we would be talking about it later, Gauri.
that later. Okay, no, the corresponding points for it, what we spoke about, I think it will be covered in.
It will be covered by the speaker, and then we can take.
Yeah.
Maybe one last question we'll take. Do we rely on Anderson's criteria, or is it sufficient to go by GHT alone, Dr. Gauri? Whom do we ask?
Yeah, I think Dr. Krishnadas is here. I think we can ask him that.
Yes.
Oh, basically, GST alone, I don't think is very reliable. So we need to corroborate with all the data which we have on the visual fields, as well as, of course, you would all agree the clinical criteria as well. But in general, I would consider the Anderson's criteria, at least for the general practitioners who are listening and the beginners. They should start with the relying on interpretation based on Anderson's criteria.
Thank you very much, Dr.